my name is Diana Avenue, and this is another edition of the Mount Clemens Minute. And today I am honored to have as my guest Thomas Barnes, who is a community activist here in the city of Mount Clemens. How are you today, Thomas?
I am very well, Diana. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. So the reason why I thought it was important to have you as a guest on this edition is you run a youth mentoring program here in Mount Clemens, TCB Youth Mentoring, a nonprofit, and you're running it out of the Cairns Center, which is so rich in history here in Mount Clemens. And I do not believe that there is enough information outside of this immediate community about what you're doing and about the center and what it means to the people of this community. So I'm going to give us a platform here of about 10 to 13 minutes to go over the most important parts about why is this important to Mount Clemens. So let's start with, why did you start a youth mentoring program?
Because my mentor saved my life. It's the simplest answer. When I was 20, I was kind of lost. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life, and God brought somebody across my path that really changed the direction of my stars. Stayed in it with me when I went through a bunch of different situations in my life and really helped to make me become the man who I am today. So I've dedicated my life to paying back that debt of gratitude that I have to him for taking the time out to make me feel like I was important enough to invest in.
Okay. So we had a conversation earlier today about this specific place that we hold, the Cairns Center, and it has been several different things throughout the years. And tell me about how you became so involved with the center.
Well, it's funny, right? Because I had a dream about this place one night. Now I thought I was tripping. The dream was so real and so vivid. Within a few days after having the dream, I met Loretta Brownlee, a lady who I was reintroduced to Mrs. Brownlee, someone who had an extreme effect on my life as a young man. Now I'm in my early 20s. I run back into Loretta. She's running a neighborhood watch program. She's telling me about a grant that they're looking into getting for this community center building. And it was the building that I seen in my dream.
Okay.
So
wow.
I dedicated myself to helping Loretta bring this thing to fruition. And over the years, it's been underfunded and mismanaged, and there's been a lot of things that have happened with it, but I think Loretta's dream deserves some investment, and to continue the legacy of what she started here, that's why we have dedicated so much of our time and effort and energy to this space.
So tell me about the neighborhood that the Cairns Center is in. First of all, this is a neighborhood that you were born and raised in?
I was not, actually.
Okay.
My grandparents moved to Michigan from Paris, France. My grandfather was in the military. He was in the Air Force. They moved from Paris to Oceanside, California, and then to Mount Clemens. My grandfather loved the fact that he could ride his 10-speed from their house at Colchester and Orchard and go into the base and go fishing.
Okay.
He didn't have to have a car. So they just kind of landed here, and this is how my family started out in Mount Clemens. I was born and raised on the other side of town on Barbara and Clinton River Drive, and it's been my constant, it's been my goal to really bring resources into the communities on the east side of Gratiot and Mount Clemens, because I feel like over my lifetime of being here that they've been underserved. And it's been my experience since moving here in 2015 that this is kind of like the land that time forgot. It's kind of like a lost part of our city. When it doesn't need to be, and it shouldn't be. And I really wanted to bring more awareness to a part of our city that has so much potential. How many of our children actually live in this part of our city, right? Geographically. You gave me some statistics earlier about our school and how many youth that live in our city and that actually go to our schools. Why don't you go over those? Because I think it's very impactful. So the city of Mount Clemens has just over 15,000 people to live here. There's 5,280 students that are between the ages of 5 and 17 years old. There's 861 students that attend Mount Clemens Community Schools from kindergarten to 12th grade. Prevail Academy is only a few blocks down the road. They're home to 601 students from kindergarten to 8th grade. They don't even have a high school. 3,800 of the kids that live in the city of Mount Clemens and call Mount Clemens home don't go to our local school districts. So what does that mean to the city? You don't share the same community. We're not going to birthday parties together. We're not going to Girl Scout meetings together. We're not going to baseball and soccer practice together. With the city of Mount Clemens having no recreation department and our kids not going to school together, it makes for a tough time to be a kid living in the city of Mount Clemens. But I grew up in a better Mount Clemens. And that's what we are focusing on, is giving the kids what we were able to get as kids. When I was a kid growing up in Mount Clemens had a vibrant recreation department, right? So like every park in Mount Clemens had a summer program. They had college students that came and they played Mancala with you and bumper pool and caroms, and we made ice cream with the people who own Miller Brothers, and we watched movies in the summer. It was a great thing. And now here I am, staying true, living in Mount Clemens as an adult, raising my young family here, and my kids don't get the same quality of service that I received as a child. So that's why the Cairns Center is so important to me, is because it's the start of a bigger conversation about providing services to the youth and families of our community that can't afford those services.
So I think community is the key word here. By delivering the programs that you have here at the Cairns Center, it really is starting to bring people together as a community and the youth. So one of the things that you've done with TCB Youth Mentoring is making sure that our at-risk youth have direction, have mentorship, and have all of the things that they need to be successful in life. So let's talk about some of the programs that you're running currently with TCB.
Oh, TCB. So Thursday night we run a teen talk. We run this at the Collab in downtown Mount Clemens, where we feed all of the kids dinner and we just get them a safe space to come in and express themselves. Our youth program focuses on kids that are 14 to 19 years old. So they go to school all day for 9 hours and they get talked at and they get preached at all day long. Nobody ever really wants to hear their opinion. So we give them a safe space to talk about what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what they're going through. On Friday nights at the Cairns Center, we run a youth open gym. As you can see, we got some screens here. We've got Xbox X Series, the PlayStation 5 for the kids to be able to come in and hang out and play the video games, eat snacks with their friends. We run open basketball all night long. And it just, again, provides a space for the kids to not have to leave the neighborhood in order to have fun in their own community. Because 40% of the people that live in this community don't have access to transportation.
Oh, wow. That's a huge statistic.
Right.
And we don't have a Parks and Rec department anymore in the city of Mount Clemens.
We don't. And, you know, Mount Clemens had to go through a series of budget cuts, and we understand how we got here. The question is, when the lights have been off for so long, when you finally get the money to pay the light bill, how do you get the lights turned back on, right? So we went through these hard times in Mount Clemens, but now we're coming out of that. And now it's time to start having some real conversations about how to bring services back to residents.
Right. So in between having city services restored and where we were before, I think that what you're doing is basically, I think, saving a lot of the youth of our city, and not only the youth, but a lot of adults as well. You know, one of the things that I think you and I discussed earlier, I'm almost ashamed of the fact that I didn't understand all of these things that were happening or not happening right in my own city. And I feel like as part of somebody in our community that we should all have a call to action and a call to serve. How can the other residents of our city help either advocate for getting city services back or help the programs that you are currently running? What are your biggest needs right now?
I mean, it's the advocacy angle, right? It's really getting involved in talking about why these things don't exist and how can we partner together to bring these things back. So Diana, you and I met during Thanksgiving of last year.
We did. As
we were working together to make sure that we could save the Mount Clemens Santa Parade. It's strength of partnerships, right? It's the partnerships. That's what we need. We need more partnerships. We need more people coming in and offering services. You know, bring your gifts and your talents here so that we can offer them back to the community, so that we can work together to make Mount Clemens the place that all of us want to live and work in.
Yeah.
I don't want to live in a place that I don't want to hang out in.
Right.
I don't want to hang out in a place that I don't want to live in. So, like, how do we make Mount Clemens all of that for everybody?
Right.
And not forgetting that a quarter of the population that lives in Mount Clemens is African American. Like, the representation needs to be there.
Right.
In all of our city boards and all of our city clubs and all of our organization and our business district, representation matters. And I would have hoped that 2020 taught us that, right?
Absolutely.
I would have hoped that all of the climactic events of 2020 would have taught us that.
It's a great equalizer, right? We all bleed the same red, and everybody in our community deserves to be heard and deserves to be like everybody else. I firmly believe all of that. One of the things that I just recently found out during the pandemic, right? Mount Clemens is kind of poised to be the comeback city, right? We didn't lose any businesses during COVID. We opened 12 new businesses in our downtown district during COVID, and that's wonderful for our city. It helps drive city services. But if those city services aren't being directed to everybody in the community, then that could be a problem. So hopefully that's all going to change now that some of the coffers of our city, our budget's balanced. We have a strategic plan. I'm really hoping that, like you said, the poverty level in this quadrant of the city is addressed properly, and we're able to get some of those services back.
I think that people like to look at the world through a telescope, right? I'm more of a big picture guy. Like, we want to focus on, like, the downtown. Let's specifically look at the downtown because we can't fix anything else, right? But the reality of the situation is, let's talk about how our school district is 90% African American and our city is 24% African American.
All right,
how is this happening on our watch? The school is just as important, if not more important, to the health and sustainability of the city as the downtown is.
I think the Mount Clemens School District is a much bigger conversation than we can have on this 10-minute podcast.
I agree.
And I have heard had conversations about that with some other city leaders, and it flabbergasts me how we got to this point, and I don't know how we're going to get out of it, but it definitely is something that at one point it's going to have to tip.
But if we're talking about at-risk youth, and we're talking about where the need is at, and we're talking about the demographics of the city, these are things that we can't ignore. Because if we ignore the school, then we're ignoring the most vulnerable of our population. The kids that are left at the school district are the kids who didn't flee to other schools.
Right.
Where do our services need to be directed at? Our services and our help need to be directed at the places where the help is at.
Right.
You don't go looking for sick people at church. You go to the hospital looking for sick people.
Right.
You don't go looking for church services at the hospital, right?
Right.
So if we're looking to where we're going to direct our help at, we need to go to the places that need the help the most.
One of the things that we have to remember, too, is that the school is actually driven by the state and state funding. The city has very little to do with it other than the name on the school, right?
True, but there's 7 board members who run the school who are all city residents,
right,
who live in the school's footprint.
Duly noted.
Who move the steering wheel in the direction of that school district, who are residents who are responsible to the people who live in this community and the parents of this community. So not to talk about the schools, but to talk about the demographics of help.
Yep.
We work with at-risk students in this community. A lot of the kids from Prevail and from Mount Clemens frequent the programs that happen in this building. And that is our goal. Our goal is to level the playing field. Mount Clemens has 3 recreational buildings that should be open and operational, and 11 community parks. Do you know that there are only 6 parks in all of Clinton Township, but there are 11 in the city of Mount Clemens?
Did not know that.
Mount Clemens
I know
is
Shady
4
Side.
square miles with 11 city parks.
Did not know that.
Exactly. So recreation should be a thing that we put our focal point on because it's quality of living, right?
Right.
An active community is a healthy community.
And if we want to attract young families, then that's absolutely something that I'm sure the cities would have to address.
Absolutely.
So,
that we have to address too, right?
Absolutely.
As residents and people who live here, like I want to go play dodgeball or kickball or softball with my wife. Like, doesn't have to be something that has to come from the top down. Our grassroots local organizations can be working on fixing these issues also.
Yeah. One of the things that I have decided that I'm going to invest more time in is going to our city commission meetings which are the first Monday of every month
Mm-hmm.
at the City Hall. And that's where us as residents can voice our concerns and listen and understand what's happening in our city. But I want to focus, before we close out on this podcast, give me a success story or two about the youth in our community that you have been serving. Give me some feel good about somebody who maybe was at risk, who has then, besides yourself, turned around and put their hand down and helped somebody else up, or made it to a level that they didn't believe they could make it to.
One of my favorite kids. And if you were to ask him, he would tell you that he thinks that I'm the kid, that he's the kid that I don't like the most. He's my absolute favorite kid. So I met a kid a few years ago. His name is Rashard Davis.
Okay.
When I met Rashard, he was in April of his senior year of high school, and Rashard had received 3/4 of one high school credit.
Wow.
In 3.5 years of high school, he had 3/4 of one high school credit.
You needed, what, 12 to graduate?
24.
Okay.
So
Shows you how long I've been out of school.
So Rashard was attending South Lake High School, and one of his friends brought him to me. When I met Rashard, his mother and I went to the school to talk about Rashard. Rashard had 77 excused absences out of 84 days of school that had elapsed. Rashard had just given up on life.
Out.
The school counselor told me that he wasn't worth my time, that we should just send him to boot camp. She gave me a boot camp booklet for some boot camp in Battle Creek. Told me this kid wasn't worth my effort. This lady didn't know who I was. I said, within 12 months, I'll have this kid graduated from high school and in college. She was like, yeah, good luck. What the lady didn't understand is that the kid had just lost his father.
Mm.
His mother had major surgery for diverticulitis. He was afraid that he was going to lose his mother too. 3 weeks after he started with our program, the kid's brother committed a felony murder. This kid was going through hell, and nobody stopped to find out why all of this was happening to him. So he worked. Took me a little longer than a year. It took me 2, but we got him graduated from high school. It was one of the proudest moments in my career.
That's awesome.
Of watching this kid grind it out and graduate from high school. Once he graduated, he is now a student at Macomb Community College, studying social work. He works here at the Cairns Center.
That's amazing.
A year ago, he and I piloted a program called Richie's Room, where he worked to create a safe space for kids that are in similar situations as what he is in. We talked earlier this week, and he said, no matter what happens, I'm dedicating my life to doing what you do. So it's the snowball effect. Somebody saved me, I was able to save somebody else. That somebody else is going to save somebody else. That's why I do what we do.
So this is why having this podcast was so important to me, to be able to get the word out about what is happening in our community. I love your story. You have dedicated your life. You've dedicated your personal savings. You've dedicated your family to giving back.
Don't say that too loud. I still want to be married.
Hi, Katie. To this community. And that's all from the heart. And, you know, there is the power of one, right? We talk about that all the time. One person can make a difference. You made a difference in this young man's life and so many others, and he is now turning around to make that same difference. And as community members, no matter where we live, if we don't stop and ask, how can we make a difference? How can we invest in our community? Then really, what are we doing here, right? So it has been an absolute honor to have you on this podcast. We could talk for hours about what's been happening, what we can do to help. But if you had to say one thing, if you had to ask for one thing to be able to help this specific mission here at the Cairns Center with TCB, what would it be? What would give the biggest impact?
Bringing your gifts here. This can't be a one-man war for a community. It needs to be all of us fighting. Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines. Everybody needs to be fighting the same battle to save our community.
So we need mentorship?
But
Sponsorship.
all of that.
All of it.
All of it. Like, everybody can bring something. Like, you had this wonderful lady from My Care Health on, right? My Care Health is working with the Anton Art Center to sponsor an art program in this building. That's what I'm talking about. It's the power of bringing all of those things together
Resources.
in order to bring those resources here.
Absolutely. So I'm going to pledge that I'm going to use my voice to try to bring resources here to the Cairns Center and to the youth of our community so that nobody is forgotten and everybody gets a chance. So, Tommy, it has been an absolute honor to have you on, and we're going to do this again really soon.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.